think it is time. All right, everyone. Thank you for having us. This is a great event. Thank you to Deantoni. Thank you to Speakeasy. This is fun. I don't recognize most of you. My name is Maggie. My creative thing is Streetcat.Media. And I'm going to kind of explain a little bit of that today and what I do. I mostly am a DIY arts organizer here in Atlanta. I work a lot out of the bakery. I don't know if y'all have heard of that. I know a lot of people here have played there. I've seen you and helped you. So at the bakery, I organize a lot of tech-oriented programming, workshops, stuff like that. Usually every month, not every month, we have the Atlanta Synthesizer Club come, and we have someone host a workshop. So I personally am very involved in organizing like tech programming and stuff. Okay, I do PowerPoints by having browser tabs open. So I'm going to explain myself a little bit. I am really into making technology more equitable for people. So that includes artists. So my journey in tech began when I first started teaching people like really basic computer skills. I had some neighbors who were trying to apply for jobs and whatnot, and I kind of understood, wow, there's like a really big need for people in education, more DIY accessible education to learn these things. So over time, my programming has evolved to now I'm doing like super fun, weird wearable stuff, which is really exciting, and I'm gonna be talking about that a little bit today. So yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I have all my weird stuff I post. I'm usually on like a new project every day. It's like usually a DIY project and me doing something really strange. But you can follow my adventures on the gram, Streetcat.Media. I do stuff in the past. I've built an arcade machine very recently. I want to talk a little bit about, so arcade, that's fun stuff I do that for money, but the biggest thing for me in technology is community that comes with it, and that's really how I've learned everything I know about hardware and software. I didn't go to school for tech, I went to school for art and whatnot, but I started learning about technology by going to makerspaces. Is anyone here familiar with makerspace? A little bit? They're really great places where you can go and they have tools. You can be a member for like usually under $100 a month, and you can go for 24/7 access to use woodworking or electronics tools and stuff like that. So there is where I learned kind of, oh, this is what an Arduino and this is what a Raspberry Pi and stuff is. So in Atlanta, there's a bunch of maker spaces. I've been involved in a couple, but I really want to note that around the world, there are really great, amazing places where if you are interested in creating your own tech and learning about making your own hardware, I recommend, the first one is called PIF Camp. It's this really awesome like synth hacker camp that happens in Slovenia every August. If you've heard of Bastel Instruments, if you've heard of, I mean, I'm sure you have, lots of like DIY stuff, like this up here I have on my computer is an actual circuit. It's an instrument that someone made at PIF Camp. So there are communities outside of Atlanta where if you're really interested in learning about this kind of stuff and being really creative, I really encourage you to go explore. Because last summer I just went off to Europe for 5 weeks and just kind of like chummed around and met people and went to PIF Camp, and I had a blast. So PIF Camp is awesome. You're basically outside the whole time with Slovenian European hackers. And at PIF Camp, I worked on my first wearable e-textile MIDI controller. So raise of hands real quick. Who has heard of like microcontrollers, Arduinos, Raspberry Pis? Kind of like half the room. Those are things that I'm really interested in because of their accessibility and affordability. But there's a big learning curve when it comes to getting there, right? As an artist and someone who's not really big in coding and C++ and knowing what a resistor is and all that fun stuff. So how I kind of approach projects are, I'm really good at like reading people, like people who have really good skills, and you know, I ask people questions, and I reach out to the community, and I go, okay, hey, you're part of this community. So when I was at PIF Camp, I was like, hey, Slovenian hackers who just sit on your computer all day and are really good at hacking, can you help me with this code? And over time, they helped me develop this project to where Like Arduino and Adafruit, there's a lot of open source libraries and stuff out there that you can use. So we used a little bit of that, but also started kind of crafting our code and our project idea together. So here on the screen, you can kind of see I have like a little prototype that I've done here. So the lighting is not great, but if you can see right here, this is a little actual e-textile controller that I made. It has 8 buttons. So all these little tabs are based on some fabric that I have in here. There's great resources on the internet, and I'll kind of show you guys where you can go to look. But I like working with fabric that is electrically conductive. So like if you touch something, it can send a signal through a wire to a controller. So here I started experimenting with some of this kind of controller idea where I just made like an 8-scale or 8-note C-scale octave here. And it goes into a teensy. So I have some documentation on my website if you're interested about PIF Camp. I'm really into like fashion and making costumes. So tonight, can't really see I'm behind all this stuff. I made a little jacket, a vest, inspired by one of my favorite video games, Ocarina of Time, by kind of Link's character and also just the different elements in the game. This is a little N64 controller that I made based on that. So I like integrating kind of fabric stuff, fashion stuff, cosplay stuff, because I think cosplay is a really big draw for people who are very new to electronics, and it's very easy, like, hey, make a sweet costume for Dragon Con, right? You know, dress as your favorite character. So I have some documentation here. And there's just like, I won't go into it, but there are a bunch of like Dynacon, other hacker conferences that I really encourage people to go to because they're very special events where very creative people are there and you find out some really amazing stuff. So I just want to kind of shout out that outside of like the e-textile stuff, workshops that are coming up. Let's see. I'm doing an actual DIY wearables workshop on working with this MIDI controller that I'm going to be demonstrating. And I have a little LED circuit on the back that's kind of hard to show. But I'll be teaching a workshop on this coming up at the bakery. So, kind of getting into the project. All right, Adafruit. Are y'all familiar with Adafruit a little bit? It is like my all-time favorite. It's like everyone loves Amazon and I love Adafruit. That's where I spend all my money. Because you can buy sensors on there, you can buy microcontrollers, you can buy kind of anything electronics oriented. So my favorite microcontroller that I love to work with is the Circuit Playground. Have you all heard of the Circuit Playground? No? Okay. So it's $25 and it's a nice little microcontroller that has 5 built-in sensors. So who here has ever tried to build a sensor? Yeah, were you successful? Was it easy? Yeah, it's really fucking hard. So there are 5 built-in sensors into this tiny little board, which is actually really amazing because it has capacitive touch sensor, it has a tilt sensor, it has a temperature sensor, a light, kind of like a theremin type sensor. So there's a lot of built-in functionality for musicians alone into this board, if you think about it. And in the past, I've used this mainly, hold on, do I have the photo? I think I do. I've worked with kids at Wonderroot where we made a mural on their wall of their logo Wonderroot, and it was made out of capacitive touch paint. And we mapped each individual, we kind of like combined a couple letters to make 8 letters, but we mapped it to a circuit playground so kids could understand physical computing on a very simple level, but also like being fun and creative with circuits. Okay, so Adafruit, I just recommend if you have an idea or anything for a project, just kind of browse through, look at their sensors, look and think and see what you can do with a project and these microcontrollers. So another kind of board that I really like to use is the Teensy. Have y'all heard of the Teensy? It's teensy, it's tiny. Right here, I have my tiny little Teensy, but it's a Teensy, but it has a lot of functionality compared to other boards. So I have like all my electronics and stuff with me to show y'all. So this is an Arduino Uno. Have y'all seen this before? This is kind of like your first microcontroller, like baby's first microcontroller that they get at the first LED class. You're like, oh, I have my IOs, I have my power and all that fun stuff. These are great boards, but they're not super powerful. You can't do a whole lot with them. They're not native to MIDI. So you'll start seeing when you start building your own electronics, like, okay, I like MIDI signals, I like using these different types of inputs, but they have all their own different types of software that run with them. So it's all this kind of complexity that runs together even from the get-go. So that's a big thing. When you're planning a project, do your research beforehand, because if you're like, yeah, I'm gonna build this sweet capacitive touch MIDI controller out of an Uno, like you're gonna have a really bad time. So that's why I went with this Teensy 3.6, because it has not only like built-in MIDI into it, you just go, let me pull up. So this is the Arduino IDE. It seems very threatening at first, but it's actually pretty cool. If you get a microcontroller, I highly recommend downloading. These are called sketches. They're like little libraries. You just kind of mess around, kind of change some values, and then you can do things to them. So this is my sketch for my controller right here, which I made a 2-button MIDI controller, which I'm proud of. If you try to do it, good luck. So actually, if you look on the internet, that's another thing. It's really easy to do a project if there's good documentation. There's absolutely no good documentation for doing a multi-input MIDI controller with a Teensy. The only guy that has done a walkthrough has this shitty little picture that's like super blurry where you can't see any of the inputs or anything. I'm like, that's useful. So I'm actually, everything I've learned with this project, I will be teaching in my workshop coming up. So if this is something you're interested in, I have worked through a lot of the type of resistors that you need for working with capacitive touch and whatnot. So here, I'll kind of pull up. All right, so people not too familiar with Arduino or whatnot, code, it's kind of written, there's like a lot of words and whatnot. And then this is like a little window into seeing what data is flowing through the electronics. I know it's difficult to read, it's a bunch of little numbers up at the top of the screen, but the numbers, once you start pressing stuff, actually change value. So if you're not too familiar with Arduino, this is a really great tool for you to go, hey, does it actually work? Because sometimes you're like pushing stuff and you're like, I don't know if it works or not. That's me more often than not. So I am not a musician by any means, but I love hacking things and I love tinkering and I love working with musicians. So one thing at the bakery that I am involved in is, I don't know if y'all have heard of, let me pull it up. I have this room called the Death Box. It kind of is what it sounds like a box that you could die in. But it's a really great DJ room. It's a room where we have, like, Colin has played in there. Eric, I believe, has played in there. We've had a number of DJs play in there. Tonight, we have a rave going on in there. And so in the Death Box, I've slowly been, like, putting people in there to actually, like, play, but my end goal is to have artists actually build interactive instruments for other artists to play inside the Death Box. So my time at PIF Camp was spent prototyping, hey, how could I build a really weird jacket that Death Box DJs could put on and connect into their computer? Like, those are the type of things that I am interested in working on. So the Death Box is a work in progress, as you can see. So with that, let me pull this up. I don't really do much music production, so I'm going very DIY here with my MIDI interface. I'm more in like the software end of things. I, in the past, have worked like on Google-related products, like cloud stuff. So I'm familiar with Google's AI project that they have. There's one guy, he came out with this thing called AI Duet, and he uses this cool MIDI library called Tone.js. So if you ever want to make a website that has like MIDI enabled on it, you can use this library called Tone.js. So it's kind of annoying because there's an AI that like plays with you. Let's see. hold on, let me see if I can get my sound. Wait, can you turn off the sound real quick so I can plug back in? Okay. I don't want to murder everyone's ears. I don't think I am. Well, you may not be able to hear anything, but you can still see roughly. Oh, come on. Sorry, we have poor internet service in here, and this requires using the internet, so great job on my part. But in theory, so this program, I will just explain it to you. So right here, this MIDI controller here, I have several copper buttons on it, and I have 6 copper buttons. Yesterday, I was only able to get 2, but that's cool. I'm gonna add more. But right now, if you press this, they trigger different MIDI notes. So I have this little circuit. I have 2 wires kind of coming up to here that feeds into a resistor, and the resistor kind of separates 2 lines. We have kind of a data send, so it goes, hey, capacitive touch buttons, you're there and you can accept electricity. And then the read, when you actually touch the buttons, you have data that goes into the read going, hey, something's touching, something's touching. So then that sends a signal, a MIDI signal. Has anyone worked like in MIDI programming before here? So you know it kind of gets wild and wacky with all the MIDI notes and channels and all that fun stuff. So I got really into it. Yesterday, a couple past days, just rebuilding this project from the summer. So just like all in all, I want to kind of just show everyone and tell everyone that it's like really fun, that you can have fun making weird projects that really have no like sense or meaning at all, except for something that's really special to you. Because I'm gonna wear this vest a lot. And I'm gonna go, hey, do you have a MIDI input on your, or like USB in your computer, MIDI console where I can plug into? Like even later, if someone wants to plug in, let's do it. So I'm that kind of person, an artist, where I really like collaborating with people, and I really like experimenting with ideas. But I will say that I work mainly with recycled materials. I really don't like using anything new. So everything from this jacket, I went to the thrift store and got a bunch of old pants, and I cut them up, and I made this vest. And these copper plates I took, I just have a bunch of scrap material that I pulled from. So that's another thing too, is trying to be as sustainably conservative in your work. If you're creative, I think is important. So I'm gonna leave it open if anyone has any questions real quick. I can answer questions. Anyone? Well, I'm at the bakery, so I am all, last week I helped Colin build a projection screen with duct tape and conduit pipes. So if y'all saw that at his thing, we're super DIY. I enjoy working with people in that regard, yeah. So if you ever want to do anything, just let me know, contact me, DM me on the gram or on Facebook or whatever. I'm friends with a lot of people here, so I appreciate y'all just listening to me. To y'all my friends, thank you. Yeah.